Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are attempting to chart one of the most uh, abrupt, bizarre, and ultimately tragic transitions in modern viral history.
We are.
We're discussing the story of Caleb Lawrence McGilvery,
Mhm.
a name perhaps unfamiliar to many, but instantly recognizable by his fleeting yet infamous internet persona.
Kai the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker.
Exactly. His life trajectory accelerated from being an anonymous, transient individual to a national media sensation perceived as a hero
Right.
on the side of a California highway, only to crash into the reality of a murder conviction in New Jersey, all within a narrow 3-month window.
That speed and the sheer contrast between those two identities, hero vigilante versus convicted killer, that's what gives this narrative its profound, unsettling power.
It really is.
We're analyzing a robust stack of source material today. Details of McGilvery's background, the specifics of the 2013 Fresno incident that propelled him into the spotlight, and the entire comprehensive legal process.
Including the trial, the sentencing.
And the subsequent documentary that, rekindled public interest.
Our mission is to synthesize these details and understand the factual sequence of events, the how and why of this monumental shift. We want to explore exactly how an instantaneous, massive public identity complicates the legal reality that follows.
Especially for an individual already so detached from conventional society.
What happens when the public creates a narrative that overshadows the actual person standing trial?
That is the central tension here. Before we delve into the facts, we must set a foundation of respect. When we discuss the events that led to the death of
Joseph Galfy.
Joseph Galfy, the New Jersey attorney, it is paramount that we handle the gravity of the situation and the fact of the victim's passing with genuine respect and neutrality.
Of course.
Our analysis is confined strictly to the facts and evidence presented in the sources and the legal proceedings, aiming to understand the complexities of the case without, endorsing any viewpoint or engaging in speculation beyond what was reported.
Okay, let's unpack the man behind the hatchet. Before 2013, Caleb Lawrence McGilvery had a life already defined by, instability, self-definition, and movement.
Right.
For an individual who became globally famous overnight, the details of his background, these sort of anti-establishment roots, they're crucial to understanding his later actions.
Indeed. Starting with the basic biographical details, McGilvery was born on September 3rd, 1988, in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Okay, so a Canadian origin.
Yes, and during his teenage years, the family moved to St. Paul, Alberta, where he attended St. Paul Regional High School. This establishes a structured Canadian origin, but his life soon veered sharply away from that.
And he quickly distanced himself from his birth name. He used various names, including Caleb Kai Lawrence Yodi Walway. But the adoption of Kai, that became central to his public identity.
It did.
Where did that name come from?
According to his own statements, the name Kai was adopted after he participated in a spiritual practice, what he called a spirit walk, while he was living on an indigenous reservation.
So a very deliberate attempt to self-create.
Exactly, to divorce his identity from the one he was given at birth. The new, self-assigned name aligns perfectly with a transient lifestyle.
One that seeks spiritual meaning and distance from societal labels.
Right.
And his origins, by his own account, were significantly troubled. He didn't just walk away from a standard family. He claimed he was raised in a fundamentalist Christian cult.
He did. He also stated his parents were divorced and, critically, that he had been molested in his youth.
These are highly significant self-reported details.
They are. While we can only report his claims, they establish a consistent narrative of trauma, disruption, and an active search for autonomy outside of established norms.
That context is so important. It offers a kind of foundational explanation for the instability that characterized his life leading up to 2013.
Well, a man with a deep background of trauma is often not equipped to handle the sudden, overwhelming pressure of instantaneous global fame.
That instability translated directly into his chosen lifestyle prior to the viral incident. He wasn't just adrift. He actively embraced a transient life, which he specifically labeled home free.
Not homeless.
Right, home free.
That terminology is not mere semantics, it's philosophical. Referring to himself as home free suggests a chosen, almost political rejection of conventional structures, rather than simply being a victim of circumstance.
It implies freedom and non-confinement.
And this philosophy directly manifested in his decision to live entirely off the grid in the most fundamental way possible.
And this is where the contrast with his future celebrity status becomes so stark. The sources confirm he had absolutely no official documentation.
That's correct. He explicitly stated that he did not possess any of the fundamental official identification documents required for, basic participation in modern society.
So no health insurance, no social security card?
No driver's license, no passport, or any other official form of identification. He existed outside the census, outside the banks, outside government tracking systems.
So you have an individual who actively sought anonymity, rejecting all official markers of existence.
Yes.
Who then, in the blink of an eye, became one of the most recognized faces on the planet.
The irony is profound. His life was defined by shedding official identity, only for the internet to impose a new, highly specific, and inescapable identity upon him.
And the fact that he was undocumented?
It made his persona, Kai, an empty vessel ready to be filled by the public imagination. The public didn't see Caleb Lawrence McGilvery, the man with a troubled past.
No.
They saw Kai, the unfiltered, hatchet-wielding philosopher, a pure, immediate creation of the media cycle. This instant identity shattered his previously chosen existence and, as we'll see, significantly complicated his interactions with law enforcement and the legal system.
The transient life offered invisibility. The viral moment made him hypervisible.
And that visibility ultimately defined his incarceration.
Here is where the transformation takes place. In February 2013, the man known as Kai was hitchhiking, and the event that followed was chaotic, violent, and highly quotable.
The perfect storm for internet celebrity.
It really was. The sequence begins with him being picked up by Jet Simmons McBride.
Right, and even the beginning of the journey sets a strange tone. McGilvery described McBride as weighing 300 pounds and making the highly delusional claim of being Jesus Christ.
So the atmosphere was unsettling from the start.
Yeah.
But it escalated quickly based on these disturbing confessions McBride made during the ride.
Yes. McBride started recounting a disturbing personal history, including an appalling claim of having raped a 14-year-old girl in the Virgin Islands during a business trip.
Wow.
This verbal admission established a deeply violent and threatening context for McBride's state of mind even before the vehicle incident occurred. This context would later be crucial for McGilvery's self-defense argument in the Fresno incident itself.
Then came the physical catastrophe. The sources describe McBride suddenly crashing his car into a parked utility truck.
The crash was severe. It resulted in a worker being severely injured, pinned between the vehicle's front bumper and the rear of the truck.
A really dangerous situation.
An emergency. And McGilvery's immediate reaction was to get out and assist the injured worker. But McBride initially remained in the vehicle, perhaps stunned or, maybe already planning his next move.
The situation then quickly became a second crime scene when a bystander arrived.
Precisely. A female bystander arrived to assist the worker, and at that point, McBride exited the vehicle and, instead of offering help, violently attacked her, restraining her in a bear hug.
And this is the moment McGilvery had to make an immediate life-or-death decision.
He did. He intervened because he genuinely feared for the woman's life. He later stated that he thought McBride might snap her neck like a pencil stick.
This leads to the defining act of violence. The use of the hatchet he carried in his backpack.
It was an act of extreme, immediate intervention. McGilvery retrieved the hatchet and struck McBride repeatedly in the back of the head. It was a decisive, forceful intervention, which, from the public's perspective, saved the woman.
It fit that classical narrative of a quick-thinking, decisive hero.
It did. But the lasting legacy wasn't just the act. It was the media interview that followed. Jessup Breisbeck, for CAMPH TV in Fresno, interviewed McGilvery.
And the way he recounted the blows became instantly iconic.
The delivery was the engine of his fame. McGilvery was unfiltered, intensely expressive, and completely unself-conscious. He reenacted the moment with these wild overhead swings, describing his actions with that specific, energetic delivery that, transcended the brutality of the act itself.
The famous soundbite, "Smash! Smash! SUH-MASH!"
That phrase instantly transformed the event. The intensity, combined with the almost cartoonish reenactment in its transient appearance, provided a perfect piece of viral media.
A zany delivery, as the source puts it.
Yes, and importantly, McGilvery stated that he was later interrogated by the police regarding the hatchet use, but was set free.
Which confirmed at that time that law enforcement views his actions as justified.
As self-defense and defense of others, yes.
The video, uploaded to YouTube on February 2, 2013, spread with incredible speed. Our sources confirm it garnered over 8.6 million views as of October 2025.
Which is almost impossible to grasp for a raw local news clip.
Right. And the dissemination mechanism didn't stop at the original video. The Gregory brothers, who specialize in turning viral clips into musical tracks.
They sampled the interview and created a song. This further solidified Kai the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker as a two-dimensional meme, disconnecting the character from the complexity of the man.
The resulting national attention was immediate. He was suddenly a media darling.
Within 9 days of the video hitting YouTube, he was a guest on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
February 11, 2013. He also had subsequent appearances, including on Inside Edition later in January 2020.
And this is the critical transition we must analyze. His life as an invisible, home-free, undocumented individual was instantly replaced by hyper-visible national celebrity status.
And the public perception was overwhelmingly positive.
A man who acted decisively, who spoke with a raw, authentic voice, rising from obscurity to protect a stranger. The narrative of the humble, hatchet-wielding hero was completely established.
And this narrative built on that specific zany delivery.
It would become a foundational complication in his future legal defense. The fame was built on violence used heroically, which created a dangerous, if powerful, precedent for his identity.
The pinnacle of his fame lasted barely 3 months. From the heroics in California in February 2013, we moved to the horrific events that led to his arrest on May 16, 2013, in New Jersey.
For the death of Joseph Galfy.
This pivot is devastating and immediate.
It is a profound, jarring shift. The same intense public gaze that celebrated him now turned to focus on him as a murder suspect. And before we discuss the details, we must pause to recognize the victim.
Yes, of course.
Joseph Galfy was a 73-year-old New Jersey attorney. We acknowledge the solemnity of his passing. The facts we present here are strictly the allegations and counter-allegations presented by the parties involved in the legal proceedings.
Let's detail the two opposing accounts of what happened in New Jersey. According to McGilvery's version, Galfy offered him a place to stay for the night.
A seemingly common offer, given his transient lifestyle.
Yes. McGilvery claimed that the encounter tragically turned violent when Galfy drugged and sexually assaulted him, specifically alleging rape.
So McGilvery, therefore, contended that the subsequent violence he inflicted was purely an act of self-defense.
A reaction to a life-threatening sexual assault. He's trying to mirror the Fresno incident.
He is. However, the police and the prosecution presented a fundamentally different picture.
What was their version?
The state countered McGilvery's claim, asserting that the sexual encounter was consensual, contradicting the drugging and rape claims. Furthermore, and crucially for the charge, the prosecution asserted that the murder was premeditated.
Suggesting a malicious intent, not self-defense.
Exactly. Far removed from a spur-of-the-moment defensive action.
The discrepancy centered not only on consent, but on the level of force used and the intent behind it. This leads us to the shocking intersection of his newfound fame and his legal defense strategy.
He explicitly weaponized his celebrity.
It's a remarkable instance of viral fame intersecting with criminal defense. McGilvery claimed that his elevated social currency post-California made the state's account implausible.
He used his fame to imply he had access to more desirable partners, thereby making a consensual encounter with Galfy, whom he described crudely as not a looker. Highly unlikely.
The quote itself, taken directly from the source material, is highly controversial and reveals the true extent of his self-perception as a celebrity.
It does. The defense centered on this, asserting that after the California video, he had no reason to pursue sex with men like Galfy. The direct quote is, "Do you know how many hot chicks, even if I was gay, do you know how many hot guys wanted to fuck me after that shit in California? I'm not even being vain. It's just a fact. Like, no offense, but Galfy was not a looker."
Analyzing that statement, it attempts to shift the focus from the forensic evidence of the crime to the defendant's perceived social status and desirability.
Precisely. It attempts to use the internet's narrative of the desirable, authentic celebrity as evidence of Galfy's predatory behavior.
Arguing that Galfy must have forced the encounter because Kai, the celebrity, would never have chosen it.
A highly questionable legal tactic.
What was the immediate fallout among the public when the charges broke?
The reaction was, well, contradictory but powerful. Following the murder charges, the viewership of the original viral video surged again.
Which suggests a macabre interest in the juxtaposition of the hero and the suspect.
It does. More significantly, the sources show that the fans of the original video, who were committed to the narrative of Kai the hero, mobilized. They organized and successfully raised a legal defense fund for him.
So even facing a charge as serious as murder, The fame he had cultivated 3 months prior was powerful enough to generate financial and emotional support.
The narrative was incredibly sticky. For many people, the image of him saving the woman with the hatchet was a stronger, more immediate identity than the image of the alleged murderer.
They backed the hero they had created.
But the immense pressure of this situation, this dizzying transition from transient obscurity to celebrity to murder suspect, clearly took an extreme toll.
We know that while awaiting trial, the stress mounted significantly.
Yes. While awaiting trial at Union County Jail in July 2013, McGilvery was hospitalized after suffering from self-inflicted wounds.
That detail highlights the profound psychological crisis he endured during this rapid descent.
It underscores that the glamorous surface of viral fame was utterly inadequate insulation against the trauma and pressure of a high-stakes capital crime trial. He had gone from saving a life to facing a life sentence in a matter of months.
The New Jersey legal process was not quick. After the arrest in 2013, McGilvery faced a lengthy period of incarceration just waiting for his day in court.
That's a critical point that often gets overlooked. McGilvery was imprisoned for over 5 years while awaiting trial.
5 years.
This extended period speaks to the complexity of the case, the need for extensive forensic analysis, managing the high-profile nature, and, potentially addressing defense motions. The trial finally began on April 1st, 2019.
Nearly 6 years after the homicide.
Yes.
Let's discuss the atmosphere of the trial, particularly McGilvery's conduct. The sources describe a very difficult, even hostile defendant on the stand.
McGilvery did take the stand in his own defense, maintaining his claim that he was drugged and raped and that he acted in self-defense.
But his testimony was counterproductive.
At times, yes. He was described as combative during cross-examination, which is always detrimental to a defendant's credibility.
And his behavior wasn't confined to the cross-examination. He had a notable outburst during the closing arguments delivered by his own defense lawyer.
That's right. He had an emotional, disruptive outburst that was so significant it nearly led to his expulsion from the courtroom.
Which demonstrates a clear difficulty in conforming to the sober, controlled nature of judicial proceedings.
It potentially reinforced the prosecution's view of him as volatile and uncontrollable. While he was attempting to defend his narrative, his delivery may have alienated the very jury he needed to convince.
Despite the self-defense argument and the public support from the hero narrative, the jury ultimately rejected his version of events.
The jury found him guilty of murder.
And this verdict confirms that the prosecution successfully presented evidence, likely through forensic findings and the nature of Joseph Galfy's injuries.
That led the jury to conclude the violence went far beyond the scope of reasonable self-defense. They found the element of premeditation or malicious intent required for the murder conviction.
The conviction was followed by a severe sentence, 57 years in prison.
Yes, and the sentence requires him to serve 85% of that 57-year term before the possibility of parole.
That's standard under New Jersey law for violent crimes, ensuring a minimum period of incarceration.
Right. Serving 85% of a near 6-decade sentence ensures he will spend the vast majority of his remaining life incarcerated.
What stands out here is the specific, almost poetic commentary offered by the judge during the sentencing hearing.
That judicial remark was highly powerful and intentional. The judge made a poignant comparison, telling McGilvery, "When you become eligible for parole, you will still be younger than Mr. Galfy was when you murdered him."
A statement that really underscores the irreversible loss suffered by the victim.
It uses the calendar to emphasize the weight of the punishment. And if we calculate the timeline, accounting for the 5 years of pretrial confinement.
What's the projected parole eligibility date?
Accounting for the credit for time served and the 85% requirement, McGilvery is projected to be just 73 years old when he becomes eligible for parole.
Around October 2061.
Yes, and the fact that the release date coincides exactly with the age of the victim at the time of his death, 73, is a profound and calculated parallel set by the justice system.
Since his sentencing, the sources indicate he has been housed at the New Jersey State Prison in Trenton. But the legal battle wasn't over.
No, he immediately filed an appeal. The grounds were extensive. McGilvery alleged 15 distinct instances of misconduct, abuse of discretion, and ineffectiveness of defense counsel.
A broad assault on the integrity of the trial process itself.
It was. He maintained his innocence throughout and vowed in a January 2020 interview to continue fighting the conviction.
How did the New Jersey Appellate Court respond to those claims?
The appellate court upheld the murder conviction in August 2021. They systematically reviewed his claims and ultimately found no merit substantial enough to overturn the jury's guilty verdict.
Which cemented the conviction and confirmed the lengthy sentence.
It effectively ended the primary judicial avenues for challenging the verdict. The facts of the crime, as presented by the state, proved more powerful than the defense's claims of self-defense and the public narrative of heroism.
Even after the conviction was upheld, the cultural interest in the story didn't fade. The entire bizarre saga was resurrected for a new generation of viewers through a high-profile documentary in 2023.
The case was certainly ripe for documentary treatment, examining the dark side of viral fame. On January 10, 2023, Netflix released The Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker.
Directed by Colette Camden.
Correct. It aimed to chronicle McGilvery's entire arc: the viral explosion, the fall, the trial, and the aftermath.
What's fascinating here is that the documentary wasn't just recycling old news clips. It sought to provide context through key stakeholders who were involved in different phases of his life.
It gathered a comprehensive, multifaceted view. The sources indicate the documentary included interviews with Joseph Galfy, the reporter whose interview catapulted McGilvery to fame,
Right.
members of Jimmy Kimmel's staff who handled his brief moment of Hollywood celebrity, McGilvery's own family providing context on his troubled youth, and crucially, the law enforcement figures who investigated and prosecuted the murder case in New Jersey.
By including all those different perspectives, the documentary really highlighted the dissonance between the media creation and the legal reality.
It effectively placed the man, the meme, and the murder side by side for global consumption.
And that release inevitably caused a massive resurgence of media interest.
Absolutely. The documentary's circulation on a platform like Netflix immediately caused media attention on his case to increase, leading to a new wave of discussion.
It forced the public to confront the idea of their hero as a convicted murderer.
It did.
Now, what was McGilvery's reaction to this new wave of media exploitation, especially since he was incarcerated and had no direct control over the film's narrative?
His response, reported from prison, was one of severe criticism. McGilvery claimed that Netflix did not pay him for his story. He asserted that he had been ruthlessly exploited by the production.
This claim of exploitation underscores an essential recurring tension in his entire life story. He was first exploited by the rapid-fire media machine that manufactured the heroic Kai meme.
And now, years later, he feels exploited by the true crime industry that packaged his trauma and his conviction for profit.
The irony is rich.
It is. The man whose initial fame was based on his raw, unfiltered, and highly performative self-presentation now complains of being exploited when his entire life story, the fame and the felony, is commodified by a large corporation. The documentary essentially ensures the enduring power of the Kai the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker identity.
Even as the real man, Caleb Lawrence McGilvery remains confined in a state prison.
The character outlived the freedom of the individual.
The sources, by detailing the breadth of interviews in the documentary, suggest that it successfully complicated the one-dimensional view of Kai. It forced a conversation about how society treats those living on the margins when they suddenly gain the spotlight.
Absolutely. The film served as a moment of societal reflection, asking whether the media, by instantly crowning him a hero, contributed to his instability, or whether they simply documented a pre-existing instability that led to tragedy.
And it ensures that the question of who Caleb Lawrence McGilvery truly was, the victim of trauma, the self-proclaimed philosopher, the viral star, or the convicted murderer, remains a subject of uncomfortable public inquiry. This deep dive has presented the detailed, factual account of an extraordinary and tragic trajectory. We have seen how a transient Canadian man, entirely undocumented, was instantly gifted a national identity, that of a hero, by instantaneous viral fame in February 2013.
Only to have that identity completely shattered by a murder conviction for the death of Joseph Galfy just 3 months later.
The sources confirm a rapid, irreversible descent. From a figure celebrated for stopping a violent act in California, he transitioned to a man convicted of murder in New Jersey, culminating in a 57-year sentence upheld by the appellate court.
The narrative lays bare the complex and unpredictable intersection of extreme transient living, the demands of sudden celebrity, and the ultimately definitive process of the criminal justice system.
The public narrative of heroism, however potent and financially supported by fans, could not and did not override the legal evidence presented in the courtroom.
Exactly.
So, if we connect this all to the larger context, we've seen how internet fame created a specific, potent public identity that was then controversially woven into his legal defense.
specifically through that, quote, leveraging his celebrity status.
Right. The facts of his life were briefly superseded by the powerful meme and then tragically supplanted by the facts of the crime, confirmed by the conviction.
This raises an important question for you to consider, based on the specific material we have reviewed. If a viral narrative, one of heroism and instant fame, is built around an individual, how does that pre-existing potent identity influence a presentation and reception of a subsequent legal defense when that celebrated figure is accused of a serious, unrelated crime?
What is the enduring power of a media-created narrative, especially the narrative of the hero, even when confronted by the established criminal reality detailed by the court of law? What lessons about celebrity and personal identity are permanently enshrined in the record of Caleb Lawrence McGilvery?